All right, welcome to Math on the Rocks. We are doing a different version. You might be able to see if you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify. You might see that things are a little different. Cole, why are things different?
Well, because I'm up here in Merced today, trying some new things out and really preparing ourselves for CMC-South here just in a couple weeks.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to just jump straight to that. Why did you need to drive the 3 hours to get up here to Merced?
Well, because you and I can't say no to anything. We're a couple suckers. And we will be taking this show on the road live from the Oasis room at the Palm Springs Conference in just a couple weeks.
I know, and I'm kind of freaking out. And so what you maybe if you're watching the video, I don't know if you can quite see it, but we got our little portable recording studio right in front of us. We got a couple of iPhones simulating the GoPros that we will eventually have. Just testing out the system to make sure it works. I'm kind of freaking out.
Well, and the worst thing that's going to happen is we're going to have these wonderful conversations, and only the 10 people that show up to hear about it will get to benefit from it.
All right, so there's the call to action. All right, everybody, couple of things. Call to action. So first, subscribe to our podcast because that helps. It just makes us feel good. You can watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel there. You can subscribe to Spotify, and depending on how you Spotify it, you get the video version or the audio version. If you subscribe on the iTunes app, you get only the audio version. Today, audio's good enough, I think. I don't think we're going to do any visuals. And then the other call to action is if you're going to CMC-South in Palm Springs, we are going to be recording our episodes live. We're going to do 7 live audience recordings on Friday, November 8th in Palm Springs. So we can now reveal a full list of guests. Who's going to be on there?
No longer a secret, right?
No secrets.
So we will be joined in our first block, so our 10:30 to noon block, talking about math research. And we will be joined by Dr. Steve Leinwan. We'll have the Phil Darrow. So for those of you who don't know, he critical architect of the Common Core standards, and so he'll be joining us to talk about some cool stuff. And then Albert Vialta, who is joining us. He actually is helping write the Spanish version of Building Thinking Classroom. So he is helping write. He wrote the intro for the Spanish version of that book and working closely with Peter.
I had no clue.
He's wonderful. So that is going to be a treat and hearing all about the way they're thinking about things in Spain versus things we're thinking about here in the United States and the similarities and the differences. So super excited about that. So he's cool. Probably maybe the least famous of the 3 that we have there, but definitely is going to bring the knowledge in that time block.
All right, before you go to the next session, if anybody doesn't know who Dr. Stephen Leinwand is, they need to go. The dude is a hoot. He's going to speak his mind, which we don't know what he's going to say. This is going to be fantastic. Phil Darrow, he was my boss. Phil Darrow was my boss many years ago, and the dude is brilliant as all heck. You'll listen to him, and you have to listen and kind of sometimes you have to squint because he's so full of information. But man, you'll listen, and the dude is just brilliant. And then of course we had Albert on our webinar, so we hit it. Our first session is going to be huge. Then what's happening in your second session?
So second session, we're going to be talking a lot around like PD for math teachers and what that should look like. And so we will be joined by the infamous Kathy Williams. She's going to be leading off that time block. And her and I have been talking a little bit about what she's going to be talking about. And oh boy, it's going to be great.
Oh, good.
So be ready for some a good time. We'll just say that.
Good.
And then we will also be joined by Dr. Pamela Seda, who is one of the authors of Choosing to See. And we'll be talking to her in depth about that.
Oh, that is cool. And about the third session.
And the third one will be all about teacher, like classroom practices and like community engagement. And so we'll be joined by, and we've also had her on our podcast, Fawn Nguyen. Yep. We had her. She was our keynote at last year's Central Symposium, as well as on the podcast. And so that'll be great. You never know what, like Stephen Leinwan, you'll never know.
Oh, true.
We'll have the cuss mark, tally mark behind us. We'll be ready, Fawn. We got you. We got it covered. And then we'll be Yolandi Beckles. So, and she's been doing an amazing work down in the LA area with the Knowledge Shop, supporting Black families and the community work down there. And so, super excited to have her. And also a wild card.
Speak her mind.
She will speak her mind and tell it as it is. And boy, we're excited. So it's going to be good.
Oh, this is really cool. I'm excited. Have no clue what's going to happen, but we know we've got the technology working. So that's the point of this. So that's our A block. How are you doing first off in life though? Let's kind of backtrack a little bit. How are you doing in life? You okay?
Yeah, no, life is good. It's been busy this year, kind of as things have been transitioning at work and everywhere, but it's been good, and we're finally starting to make some of that time to make sure I'm enjoying like the kids' games and those types of things outside of work and making that a priority again. Because for a little while there, I got a little lost in the middle, and so really working to make that big deal again.
Good. I got two 18-year-olds, one in college, first year UC Merced. They're loving it there. I get almost daily photos of the heron that lives on the lake that is right in the middle of UC Merced. My other 18-year-old is finishing high school. He's happy as all heck. And then my youngest junior, Jaden, he is loving high school.
That's great.
They're doing a good job of including him and his Down syndrome as part of the community. So things are good. All right. So we got some news coming from the state of California.
Oh, yeah.
So what was the news?
Well, so just this last week, we did have our 23-24 CAS assessment scores were released. Yeah. And so kind of looking at, bird's eye view, how did we do across the state? How did we do in our local areas too? Because I know that matters to both of us greatly. And long story short, I mean, there was some improvement, but not nearly the improvement that we know that we need to be making to support learners and making sure we're sending the most of them off, into their life.
Right.
Ready to engage in the world through mathematics. And so we're roughly 35% or so proficient in across the state in math, grades 3 through 8 and 11. Kern, we are almost 24%. That was about a percentage point growth there. And Merced, I think, roughly 22%.
Yeah, 21, 22. We were not doing jumps for joy. As a county, we downloaded the research files, and so that we could dig into, using the magic of pivot tables and all that sort of stuff. We could dig into at the school level and even the grade level to see how we're doing. And we're just, our coordinators are working their butts off. Same with Kern, working their butts off. And so we would love to see the results kind of that hard work reflected in our scores. And so, man, we were slicing and dicing that data every way we could to find little pockets of joy. And we did. We found...
Oh, good.
Can I share?
Sure, yeah, sure, yeah.
So we found a particular district that we've been working with. Now, what's really cool about this district is we've been working with them long-term, pre- and post-pandemic. So it gave us this nice little, case study to look at. And, we were working with them pre-pandemic on things like increasing a focus on number sense and fluency through number talks and dot talks and all that sort of stuff. And then we were pushing into CRA and really teaching for conceptual understanding. And then we were just barely getting into the idea of really focusing on student-centered instruction. Things like, at the time, it was building thinking classrooms was our push, or maybe 5 practices. And then, of course, we got interrupted by COVID, and all heck broke loose. And now this year, after 2 years, 3 years coming back from COVID, this is one of our shining districts because they've stayed the course. They, COVID aside, they returned to the idea of focusing on fluency stuff, building conceptual understanding with CRA. And for the past few years, we've been doing kind of like building thinking classroom, but we're calling it teaching through problem solving. It's this essentially building thinking class, BTC, where the kids are sitting down instead of standing up. It's kind of more in line with what they do in Japan. And we've been working on this for a couple of years. And this district is one of our first districts, if not the first, and it's the only district, I'm pretty sure, that has returned to pre-COVID scores. Like, they're back. Now, it's not good. We still have tons to do, but they are back. They're on track, and I'm so stoked. I didn't know I was going to preach like that, but I'm so stoked for them.
Well, that's exciting. What it is that you think? Because I feel like we have similar things happen down in our area where we are trying to get back to where we were, even if where we were isn't where we want to be. Yeah. But it's taking a lot longer than I know our district leaders and principals and teachers were hoping for. What do you think it is that is so hard to get back to, or moving that needle forward?
Okay. Well, I mean, COVID was such a disruptive event. It's really easy to just spend a lot of time focusing on what the kids don't have now. Oh, my fourth graders are not as prepared as they're prepared less than they've ever been, and they're just not as well prepared as they used to be before COVID. Like if we think about COVID, pre-COVID, it was, if you listen to the teachers, it's like pre-COVID was nirvana. Everything was perfect pre-COVID, and of course it wasn't. And I think that's one of the challenges is this in the Common Core, our new California Math Framework, Chapter 2, baby. One of the 3 dimensions of systemic change is an assets-based approach to instruction. And it's easy to not have an assets-based approach post-COVID. Yep. And I think that's one of the hardest things that's preventing us is it's so easy for us to see what the kids don't have instead of making use of what the kids do have. I don't know.
That reminds me often. I don't know who originally said it, but Kyle has said it to me enough times where I can't forget it. And Kyle's on my team down in Kern, and it's if you have a 5th grader that you consistently teach them and remediate at the 3rd grade level, so you're practicing all those 3rd grade skills. Well, by the end of the year, you're going to have a 6th grader who's now ready to begin 4th grade, right? And so it's if we keep trying to just chase our tail and only teach the things that they don't know and don't ever actually teach the things that we're hoping that they leave that grade level with, right, and then jump in where we need to. We're always going to be a grade or 2 or 3 behind, right? The gaps just get bigger as we go.
Yeah. That's the classic just in time instead of just in case remediation. And that's one of the things that this district did. And we obviously talk about why the kids are different, and we focus on what they don't have, and we do a little bit of mourning over the loss of what we wish we had. But what I'm proud of for this district is we're sticking to, first off, we're sticking to grade level content. If you're a 4th grade teacher in this district and you have a kid that is clearly coming in with some significant 2nd or 3rd grade gaps, we are teaching 4th grade standards anyway. That's the first thing that I'm proud of for this district. They're really attending to grade level content. And then the other thing, in addition to, I kind of said it, is they're doing number talks. They're doing the CRA. They're really working hard. They have some good curriculum, and so they're starting off with pretty good curriculum, which supports that conceptual understanding. But what I'm really proud of is they are trying their darndest to teach with a student-centered approach to instruction. Inquiry first, let the kids explore, then we take that information, we consolidate it, we have a whole class conversation. Sometimes we send them back to work on a second problem, or sometimes that consolidation is almost like tying the lesson in a bow, and then we have the students do some practice problems or reflect on their understanding. I'm proud of them because they're acknowledging that their kids are different, and so they are teaching differently in a way that creates space for the 4th grader who is operating on a 4th grade level, and it creates space for the 4th grader who's operating at a 2nd or 3rd grade level.
So we didn't pre-plan this question, but this question was recently asked to me. I'm interested in your thoughts because I have my thinking about it. But I was recently asked, whenever we look at assessment scores, right, because that's really kind of the driver of how districts are making their decisions, right? As kids go up in grade levels, they are improving in ELA,
Yes.
right? ELA, the percentages, they're growing and growing. But as they go up in grade levels in math, that is not the case, right? Like if you compare our third graders, in most cases are the highest scoring group of students, which all logic would say that would be the lowest scoring because that's the first time they've ever had to interact with the testing system, right? So you can't even blame the technology barrier because they're the first group that is going. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that? And I'm setting you up here. I'm
in trouble now because
Right?
I don't know what the right answer is.
Why, if we did, we'd be writing a book and we'd be millionaires, right? If we could figure out that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you just, things that you've been doing, things you've been seeing, what do you think is causing, or the microcosm of that phenomena?
So I will say, we saw that data. And when I didn't know when I took this job, I didn't know that was the case. Coming from a classroom or a TOSA where my job was to just kind of focus on it. I don't know, at the time it was like K-5 and stuff. I didn't have this big picture. And so now that I'm at the county level, I'm collecting data on student performance at 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade. And when I plotted it, and I discovered exactly what you said, that the longer the kids are in Merced County, the better they do in ELA, but the worse they do in math. So it's as if the kids would benefit by cutting their math class and just skipping math all forever because the longer they're in our system, the worse they do. And I was horrified by that. So what's going on? Why is that? I really do believe it's because we're constantly operating in math at with this deficit approach. I believe it. So when I'm a 5th grade teacher, I'm concentrated on all the 4th and 3rd and 2nd grade stuff that students don't know. I invest time to fix that because I do love my kids. But the consequence of that is I lost time on teaching 5th grade stuff because I was so busy looking backwards. And then I only teach a portion of the 5th grade stuff they should have learned. Gee whiz, if you're in a grade level and you learn 70% of what you were supposed to have learned, and then the next year you learn only 70% of what you're supposed to have learned, 70 times 70, that's 49%. So in the course of the 2 years, you've only learned 49% of what you should have learned. And because it's multiplicative there. And I think that's one of the reasons we need to, the solution is, I'll just say really 3 things. One, a focus on number sense and fluency. And early grades, that might be counting collections. Later grades, it's definitely going to be dot talks and number talks and problem strings, and a focus on strategies rather than blind memorization of your facts. And then it's going to be an emphasis on conceptual understanding of content. So making a lot of use of CRA, concrete pictorial representation, and abstract. And then the third thing that I think districts need to do is really focus on student-centered instruction, where the students are daily accessing, first off, stories, word problems every day virtually, where they don't know how to solve the problem quite yet. They get to grapple with it. And whether they're successful or not in the grappling, that creates the fertile territory for the whole class conversations and the teacher teaching content. And I'm a firm believer in, if we do those 3 things, good stuff is going to happen. And I have a district that is my little laboratory existence proof, I think. How did I do? What do you think?
No, I mean, I think what you said really relates with the way that I have thought about it too. It's interesting because kind of in my role, I have to support both of those things, right? I have to support, so I oversee the ELA side of the house as well as the math side of the house. And I've gotten to learn, coming out of the math classroom, I was very not familiar at all with what happens in ELA. And as I've gotten to hear my team kind of talk about it, it's interesting in how in the ELA standards, the way, I mean, there are differences, subtle differences across, grade levels, but, and texts get more complex and things like that happen. But in reality, you're really focusing on very similar things. So the kids get a lot of practice on doing those things as, little shifts are happening and getting a little more complex over and over again. Where on the math side, if you didn't get third grade, you're not really repeating some of those same skills in third grade. You're asked to apply them in a whole different way as if you've mastered them. Right. So I feel like there's a lot more pressure on early mastery and foundational, right? Because I feel, then maybe so on some of the ELA stuff, which is just interesting how that is set up and how kind of the pressures that are put on to make sure that you have the most qualified teacher at all of those slots up the chain, right? Because if you have one gap in fourth grade, well, good luck in fifth, sixth, seventh, right? Because what is happening in fourth grade is going to impact how that kid's going to do when they get to seventh grade, right? Yeah. So it's just interesting to kind of see how the standards are aligned and linked up on that side of the house versus on our side, on the math side. And not that that's an excuse, it's different. So it means that our approaches have to be different, right, and more intentional, knowing that we can't leave those foundational gaps because there may not be another opportunity for them to fill those holes without really targeted intervention, right, because there won't be time, right? So
you got me thinking. So in ELA, let's say 1 year the focus is on narrative writing, and then the next year the focus is on writing to persuade. I think those are existing genres. But the thing is, what we don't hear teachers say is, well, I'm not going to teach you how to write a persuasive essay until first you've mastered narrative essay writing. We don't do that. 1 year you teach narrative writing, another year the focus is on writing to persuade. And if I'm teaching a persuasive essay and there's things that the students are lacking that ideally they would have used or learned in the narrative, we do it inside the context of persuasive writing. I don't think ELA teachers have this just in case mentality, which is I cannot teach you fifth grade writing until first you learn the genre of third grade and fourth grade writing. It's like you're in fifth grade, you're going to write essays, and that ability to just move on. And like we see the same. We see the same thing in science class. We talk about 1 year it's earth science, then the next year it's life science, and then the third year it's physical science. It's like we don't withhold life science until you've mastered earth science. You just move on. But we don't do that in math. Math is you have to jump through the hoop. We behave as teachers, that you are not allowed to enter the gates of fifth grade until you've mastered all of fourth grade content. And that's probably one of the contributors of why there's that downward trend in math, but not in ELA. That's my thought.
Yeah, no, on the writing side, they're going to be still talking about structure, and grammar and things that, right, they're going to be doing all of those underlying skills that are required in persuasive writing. But to your point, they're not going to say, oh, you're not ready for that yet. We have to go to maybe informational is going to be the last one we talk about because that's the one that you have to go do the research and most steps to, right? It's just you're bringing a different flavor to it. But on the math side, we are very locked down until you can prove to me, right? Which then brings that deficit mindset, because if you don't have, then you can't do. And therefore, there's no way we could talk about this fifth grade math problem because you're missing this one piece of foundational knowledge from third grade. So, yes, I agree. I think that's okay. So you're making me think of an earlier episode that we did with where we talked about the 3 dimensions of systemic change. So how do we get kids back on track? 1, we teach with an assets-based instruction, assets-based approach. I'm not going to focus on what you don't know. I'm going to focus on the grade level content, and I know that as I'm teaching you things, if I need to support you with some
old content or previous skills, sure, I'll do that. But the focus is that kids are coming in with funds of knowledge. They're not nearly as broken as we want to believe. We can teach them grade level content. And then to create the space to be able to meet the needs of a wide range of kids, let's teach through active engagement, through investigation and connections, so that as the students are working on some sort of task, I'm also mixing my metaphors because I'm also bringing in big ideas from the 5 key components of equitable and engaging instruction. Same chapter of the framework. So as we're teaching this through active engagement, through investigation and connection, we are able to attend to a wide variety of kids, because some are using manipulative, some are using pictures, some are using some strategy based on intuition, while others are using algorithms. And we can really attend to a wider range of kids than through historic teaching practices like direct instruction and stuff.
And I'm glad that we've gone this direction, because this really, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm thinking about what we heard Kendall say last week on the webinar about cultural relevance and the importance of that, right? And he had talked about, like, our goal is to try to get as many of these tasks into what he called task 4, right? Or what was it?
Stage 3,
stage 4.
Yeah,
Excuse me. Yes. So stage 4 task, right, where kids are really able to find themselves in the math.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here as I'm listening to you speak and really thinking about the difference between math and ELA. I'm like, ELA does that naturally. Yeah. When you're writing personal bios and narratives about yourself, you're bringing in things that you care about naturally, right? We don't need stage 4 task in an ELA, because you're going to pick a book that you relate to. You're going to pick things. You're already doing that in a more natural way. And then we're over here saying, like, that's really important. We're not calling that, but we have to find ways in math, because it's maybe not as natural, because we weren't trained to do that.
Right.
And we may not, and because we're trying to bring a problem that all kids can engage in, well, we may not be aware necessarily, unless we've done our homework and learned all about our kids, about what those scenarios might be that they care about. So then that has these weird superficial problems that we think they're going to care about, but they don't, or ones that by accident land us in a bath of hot water, right? Because we were trying to do the best we could and just weren't sympathetic or empathetic enough for that scenario, right? So which then makes us a little like, I'm not sure I want to jump off that ledge to try it, right? Because we're so stuck but in ELA, we aren't doing that. We're providing an open-ended kind of broad topic, and you go write whatever you want to write about under this bigger umbrella, which is naturally doing the thing that we're talking about needing to do in math.
That's true. And I've literally heard ELA teachers at all grade levels talk about their choice of reading. I have to make sure I choose something with a girl in the story as the protagonist. I have to make sure I choose something with a boy as a protagonist, and choosing topics that the kids are inherently interested in. The teachers spend a lot of time thinking about that with ELA. Whereas math, we're like, dude, it's 3 times 3 is 9. Why do I need to bother finding an interest for the kids? Well, you do, because we see that it works in ELA. So we need to, in this case, incorporate some of that thinking in math. Kendall's cultural and personal relevance stuff, it hit home for me. So as we're thinking about post-COVID, I didn't know today was going to be about post-COVID, but it's this idea of let's use the scores to kind of wake us up a little bit and redouble our efforts. I'm going to claim, if we have this incessant, unwavering assets approach to instruction, we actively engage the students in investigation and exploration, creating that space, those big ideas, the room for all of our kids to navigate the same math task, and then get the kids on board by attending to the cultural and personal relevance. That while we have historically been said math is non-biased and it's all this sort of baloney, it's like, so 2 + 2 is 4. It will always be 4, regardless of the culture. I get that. But we can choose to use story problems that engage the kids, that invite the kids into the math so that they can take advantage of the assets that they already have, so that they can take advantage of the fact that we're creating this active engagement and they'll buy into it. I didn't know those 3 dimensions were going to be so important. Like I'm seeing them in a new way, and I'm appreciating them in a new way today.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that it takes work, because we did talk about, we're going to get fancy new curriculum here in a couple of years. Yeah. And my fear is it's going to be to fidelity, to fidelity, to fidelity. And yes, we want to make sure that we're teaching the program in which the way the programs were designed, because that way you're getting the results the programs promise. That does not mean that we can't go in and alter names or situations or context around some of these problems to be more meaningful for kids. And that was a big takeaway for me yesterday, or last week when I was hearing Kendall talk, is about that.
Yeah, and that's for the cultural and personal relevance, but also when we get the new curriculum, teaching to fidelity you can't, because the curriculum writers don't know what assets the kids are coming into, from an assets-based point of view. And that active engagement, that's where the kind of mushing the cultural and personal relevance, that active engagement means you have to choose tasks that are relevant to the kids and take that math, create those investigations, but help, you can grease the wheels and get in more student buy-in if we are thoughtful about bringing in the cultural and personal relevance for the kids. I'm going to keep saying it. Those 3 dimensions are hitting me harder today than when I first read them. Yeah. Anything for the good of the order?
No, I just excited about this. Is a great topic, and really my wheels are spinning now.
Yeah.
What I need to go back and do some homework on again. But no, excited for CMC South here just in a few weeks. It's going to be a party.
I'm ready. All right, everybody. This is Math on the Rocks. Hit the subscribe button, and until next time. See ya.
See you later.